What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
You dead meat!
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dead Meat After Show for Chucky Season 2. Very excited to do this. Each week we're going to be talking about the episode of Chucky that just aired with people who made the show. And today, the inaugural episode, we have the man who created Chucky joining us, Don Mancini. Hey, Don.
Yeah.
Hello. How are you guys? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you guys too. I mean, first off, I have to ask you, what did you think of episode 1? Because I don't know yet. We haven't discussed it.
Oh, yeah. We were just chatting a little bit beforehand.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved it because it jumps right the hell in.
So much stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's already a totally different show than it was at the end of season 1. Like just the one episode, we're totally changing the setting, everything.
Yeah, that was important to us. I mean, one of the things I loved about what Bryan Fuller did on Hannibal was how he would sort of change what kind of show it was from season to season, particularly going into season 3, which was the season I was lucky enough to work on. That was so different from what had come before. And I like doing that. And I've always enjoyed doing that with the films as well. I think it's important to switch things up a little bit and have a bit of a different vibe if you can. That's creatively challenging for us as well. We like trying to do it.
I always think that kind of differentiation is really important for series too, whether it's a movie or a TV show. Because when I think of the Chucky movies, I think of, okay, the second one is the foster home and the third one is military school. And so it's just those visual distinctions. It's so much easier to get it to stick in your brain.
And that's not even getting into the tonal differences.
Yeah.
Which is why, the Chucky series the franchise is one of my favorite horror franchises ever. Because last year we went through all the Friday the 13th, and God bless them, but those first 5 or 6 are pretty much the same movie.
Yeah, I
over
still
and
have
over.
trouble. Wait, what happens in the fourth one? I can't remember.
Yeah, but with Chucky, it's very easy to remember which one has Jennifer Tilly and Redman and which one is in the insane asylum.
Yeah.
What I loved about the first season of the show is that it took its time introducing all these new characters, because as longtime fans of the franchise, we sit down, we're ready to watch Chucky the TV series, and we're excited to see Tiffany and Andy and all these old characters come back in. But you're like, no, we're going to establish these new characters first. And I think it was hugely beneficial to really set those characters up before bringing in the legacy characters as a main thing. So I wasn't sure if we were going to get the same kind of thing with season 2. No, we jump right back into right where that last episode left off with Andy driving the truck and the multiple Chuckies, which is my favorite part of any Chucky property, is multiple Chuckies talking to each other.
I love multiple Chuckies.
As soon as it happened in Cult, I was so on board with the 3 of them, and then it comes back in the show with the General Patton delivery, and I was so happy that the first scene in this one is multiple Chuckies again.
Yeah. How do you even storyboard that, or kind of, how do you, I guess maybe it's just you've been doing this for so long that you already kind of mentally know, okay, we're going to have 3 of them here, so this is how we have to shoot this. But just how does that process work?
Well, now that I'm sharing the directing duties with others, in the case of this episode, the responsibility is not all mine now. That scene was largely storyboarded. It was completely storyboarded by Jeff Renfro, who directed that episode. And, he worked with us on season 1 as well. And he's an amazing director, and it turns out he just had a great affinity for Chucky and for the puppetry, and he's just the kind of person who really is into the specifics of what Chucky is. I think he really enjoys breaking down the problems as puzzles and trying to find the solutions. So, for example, the opening shot of the episode, which is this fancy special effects crane shot. We're outside the truck. We go through the windshield, and you guys haven't even seen the final effects of that. It's pretty nifty. And then it keeps going, then goes past the Tiffany doll, through her hair, actually, and then emerging from her hair into the rear of the truck as we find those three guys already squabbling amongst themselves. I think his idea is that this is almost like a literal curtain raiser on the season, that I think that was his sort of showman's instinct, is to sort of like do that with a sense of ta-da. I really loved. But yeah, I'm glad that landed for you, because one of my favorite things to do, and as you see and will continue to see as the season plays out, I like giving new challenges to Brad Dourif. We've got this amazing actor, and now that we're doing, we have 8 hours of stuff in quick succession. So now we're going, 16 hours, 16 hours of material pretty continuously, which is the first time we've been in a position to sort of get so much material out in such a short amount of time. And I think it's really invigorating, because it makes everyone stay in shape.
You're not waiting the 3 years for another production to begin. Yeah.
Exactly. The puppeteers are in the groove, and we're all just, you just get in a groove when you're in production. It's fun to do multiple Chuckies.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite alternate personality of Chucky? Because we really love bald Chucky a lot. He's very popular here.
Well, you'll see more of him potentially later in the season. That's all I'll say. These characters have arcs, including the various versions of Chucky. And so that's what we were talking about, was Brad Dourif. And it's fun to have the opportunity to work with this amazing actor. And so it's like, let's continue to dissect the Chucky persona and see, what else is ticking under there.
Yeah. Does he have any input on ideas for various Chuckies, or do you kind of come to him with a list of all right, here's these kind of different voices?
It's definitely a collaboration.
Okay.
We're constantly talking about this stuff. And as you say, we started doing it in Cult, and it was really fun just getting a taste of it there. And, then knowing, we can do more with this. Cause I think I think the character is popular and ubiquitous enough that he justifies that kind of weird examination. And, and as we let other actors play with the persona as well. Fiona plays Chucky. You never know who might end up playing Chucky, because it's all just a voodoo spell away, right?
And Brad, I believe I had seen that he will record all the dialogue as one Chucky doll first, and then change his voice up slightly and do all the dialogue of another Chucky doll as well, right?
Yeah, we were just in ADR the other day. Yeah, we do. We'll let's do all of this guy, and that's all I can say, because they have names.
Yeah.
They have distinct names, and there are different ones that come throughout the
show.
show.
On Cult, there was Buzzcut, obviously, but what, Edwardian and Ragamuffin were your other code names?
Those were just sort of casual puppet identification names. They really, other than Buzzcut, which I think we affectionately just, I can imagine bringing him back.
I love Buzzcut, yeah.
That character was pretty amusing. Stay tuned, and you're going to see more of this stuff.
Are there any alternate personas that were left on the cutting room floor? Are there any that we'll just never see, that were too weird or just too impossible to make work?
No, but it's it's always a little bit experimental, right? I know, I never know, are people going to ever think we've gone too far with this? Is it just too weird, for example, to see Jennifer Tilly playing Chucky, for example? I don't know. So it really, a lot of it has to do with feedback of people like yourselves. And it sounds like you're digging it so far.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the luxury of being able to play in the horror space too, because I think as horror fans and, horror creators, we kind of have the luxury of this precedent already being set by people who've come before us, where horror has gotten so weird. As the longer a series goes on, the weirder it seems to get. usually end up in space. Like if you let a series go on long enough, you're going to be in space at some point. So I feel like that's a neat thing because it's like you might as well get weird with it because that's what the genre is.
Yeah, I remember trying to explain the current situation with Chucky to my mom. I recently visited home and I was like, Mom, I have to rewatch the Chucky series for work. Do you want to check this show out with me? And she's not a horror fan at all, but she watched it with me as a little bonding exercise. She loved it. She loved Jake and the story of the kids. But every few episodes I would have to pause and be like, okay, so this is Jennifer Tilly, but it's actually another character inside of Jennifer Tilly's body, but everyone thinks it's Jennifer Tilly.
I had to occasionally have to do that for visiting actors and directors. And, sometimes people, they come into it. It's a complicated mythology. There's a lot been going on over the past few decades.
Yeah, that's such part of the charm too, is if you ask, maybe someone who is kind of just familiar with Chucky as a concept, it's like, oh yeah, it's the killer doll, but no, there's deep Chucky lore that people, it's so much fun. And your mom loved the mayor too, which made me.
Every episode, she would just be like, that woman is so gorgeous, talking about Barbara.
Oh my God, I'm going to tell her. Yeah. Barbara Woods is her name. And as you know, I think, she's Allie's mom in real life as well.
Which is such a great dynamic, and it adds to just the familial aspect of your entire franchise and production with so many actual familial relatives working together and just the way that you've all been together for so long. You are like a family. And I know that you were thinking about killing Michelle at the end of season 1 and you switched it up and killed Nathan instead. Yeah. So
this is so, her being recalled is very, very funny.
Just overwhelming
recall. I got a big laugh. So
she's really funny in that scene, with the reporter where she's being interviewed. And I love how just her inflections when she's, she says, I identify with I have this special place of empathy because, the guilt, the survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
The grief, the anger, the guilt, the survivor's guilt.
And I love it too because that's such a classic political trope is you have the interview with the whole family and you get this weird peek into what's going on in this politician's life. And the kids are usually just they're sometimes awkward, and it's just such a weird little glimpse into the family dynamic. And I don't know, I just think of Caroline sitting there with this doll. She's got the wedding bell doll now. I'm like, yep, this is.
Are you guys intrigued by that doll's presence?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's really intriguing to get the Tiffany doll back because I feel like that's one of the more mysterious elements that we still need to learn about. It was in the end of Cult. I remember when she starts laughing in the back seat. I was like, wait, what's going on here? And then we still don't have really an answer for it, but we're starting to.
We could presume that Tiffany was able to split her essence just as Charles Lee Ray did. So at the end of Cult, that's my intention, is that you could say Tiffany's doing it too.
Yes, with the Boku spell,
We were curious if you keep track of which soul is the original Chucky, or is it just kind of like whatever, he's all split up and it doesn't really matter?
No, and we sort of focus a little bit on that in this season.
Okay, cool.
A bit. It is a bit of a shell game in a way.
A bit of a what?
A shell game.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I think that you kind of want the audience to respond as you are. Just is one of these guys the original, and if so, how does that manifest?
And does it matter?
So yes, Chucky politics is something we deal with in this season.
Okay, great.
The inevitable politics that result from a group of Chuckies.
Yeah, that's a little bit sci-fi too. Like if you split up a soul, does it matter which one is the original, and does the original know it's the original kind of stuff?
Well, we get that in this episode. In the Chucky that visits them with the bomb is willing to sacrifice himself because there are other Chuckies out there. And I know that Fiona and Brad have talked about this motivation for Charles Lee Ray being fear of oblivion. And I don't know if that's just an actor decision or if that's worked its way into the writing process as well.
Yeah, it has. Inevitably. I do sort of keep that in mind when we're working on these stories. Even as a subtextual thing. I think I think that is something that drives that character.
So as long as there is some aspect of him out there, it's okay if he blows himself up and kills a kid.
You killed a kid. You killed a little kid.
In your season premiere. Holy shit. That kid came up, and I almost said while we were watching it, I almost was like, that kid's dead. And I was like, no, that's a young kid. That's a cute kid. I don't know if they'll... You blew that kid up.
Are you mad at the show for
No,
doing
No.
I always think it's a time-honored tradition on our podcast that we kind of get excited whenever a horror movie's ballsy enough to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I think of, like, Assault on Precinct 13 is the thing I think of when I think of, like, an infamous kid murder with the girl at the ice cream truck. And, like, that's still, this many years later, hits just as hard as I imagine it did.
And I think, like, in Jaws, the death of the kid on the raft, it's really shocking. I always feel it's important to remind the audience periodically that Chucky means business, and Chucky can be scary. Because it's a balancing act of tones, as you know. I mean, Chucky and Tiffany, particularly when they get together, I mean, they're very over-the-top characters, and they're very charming in their way. So it's important for me to occasionally, have Chucky really stick it to somebody.
That was the reasoning behind Joan's death in Seed of Chucky, right? Because every time I watch that, I'm like, oh no, she doesn't deserve that. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's because these dolls are assholes. That's why.
Yeah, they'll kill you as soon as they kill you.
Yeah, and the that was my mom's reaction to the housekeeper in season 1 when Chucky kills her. My mom was aghast and was like, but why did he kill her? She didn't do anything. I was like, it's Chucky's.
That's Chucky.
He's a little bastard.
She sprayed the Windex in his face.
That's enough,
true,
yeah.
It is kind of like being in a bad relationship with him, where it's like Charles Lee Ray would be, charming, and then you remember, oh wait, he could just murder me.
Yeah. Talking like Tiffany, yeah.
Yeah.
So you found another large house to film in.
Where do you find all these cavernous houses to film in? They're amazing.
We build them.
Really?
These are all houses of the imagination.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of episode 1, you're referring to
Like Lexi's temporary
Michelle
home.
and Lexi's new house.
Yeah.
The one, at one point Jake says, I thought you said this place was a dump.
Yeah.
And she's like, I feel like I've been demoted. Because to them, it is they're not living. It's a little more suburban.
Yeah, the mayor's house was gorgeous, though.
We just can't resist making it all beautiful. Though. I mean, 'cause it's just the thing we like to do with Chucky, and our production designer John Donterman just did such an amazing job with all of the sets, as you'll see, because we have a lot of the Catholic school. A lot of that was built, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of that. Is John replacing Craig Sandel's then?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Craig Sandel's, who did the last 2 movies in season 1.
So I know that in the movies that you directed specifically, you're always referencing a lot of filmmakers, but Brian De Palma especially with the blade reflection, and we get that in this episode again with Caroline. But we did notice some more, I guess, slightly more modern horror references here with the phone call. That had to have been an intentional Scream reference, right? That conversation feels beat by beat.
It's Scream on Halloween with Chucky and a little side order of the Strangers.
I was going to say when
yeah.
Tamra is Tamra home.
As soon as that happened, I was like, wait, that's who they're always asking about in The Strangers.
Is Tamra here?
The phone call subgenre is a thrilling thing. And so it was fun to sort of put these things together in a single set piece. Anyway, yeah, that was fun. And we also do a lot of split screen in there. Very, very De Palma.
Yeah.
Our mandate is always to try to do this sort of neo De Palma, Argento, over the top operatic thing, which Brian did so beautifully on Hannibal. But I think, just seeing Chucky in those aesthetics, that is itself kind of funny. I mean, to me, I feel like, maybe I'm too close to it, but just as a fan, just seeing a split screen sequence that involves Chucky amuses me.
Yeah, I think whenever you talk about finding the beauty in horror and those kinds of things, I always think back to Claire's death in Cult of Chucky. I feel like that's with the breaking skylight and the snow coming in right before she gets decapitated. I feel like that's the epitome of that kind of style.
That was a fun one, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, too, I'm thinking about it, and all these buildings being kind of like huge on the inside, and we're going to be at a Catholic school, so it's like a big building. That honestly does make Chucky a lot scarier.
There's so many places.
Because you never know where he's going to, and there's so many entrances to get into a building when it's that huge.
Yeah. You put him in a 2-bed, 2-bath. There's only so many places that, 2-foot tall doll could be.
Yeah.
But stick him in a mansion.
You'd be surprised.
Were there any new challenges for specifically Tony Gardner when it came to puppeteering and the animatronics? Was that truck scene a pain in the ass?
The truck scene was... Yeah, I guess it's fair to call it a pain in the ass. But a labor of love.
Of course,
Again, Jeff Renfro, who directed that episode, he did a great job breaking it down, visualizing it, making it dynamic. I love like the exterior shots of the truck careening through the night, and the overhead shot as that's careening toward the cross and the gorge and everything. Mm-hmm. I just think they did an amazing job with that. But yeah, it was a lot, and I think you didn't even see the finished version. I mean, I think you saw some, because it, like, even beyond what you've seen, the effects for that episode turned out really good. I was really excited, just like the whole, like when the truck crashes, and it goes over the edge, and then there's this great shot where like all of these like Chuckies are falling and screaming in that one. Yeah. You saw the 10th version where the camera goes in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was Jeff. Jeff loves designing shots like that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, even though we got to see, an unfinished version, I think just getting that little peek behind the scenes was so impressive, and just being aware of how intricate it all is. There's so many moving bits and pieces, and I guess it just made me so aware of like how seamesless it ends up being.
So you guys saw a lot of like the green suit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And I actually do have a question. I would have assumed that it all would have been the puppeteers in green suits like you started doing with Curse, I believe, and really amped up in Cult and the show. But I noticed that the stuff that we saw, a lot of people were just in all black. And I guess that
was like an early experimental decision that we ended up not doing much beyond episode 2, and we went back to green suits.
Okay.
It was a technical lighting thing, and that maybe there was like some benefit for the color to be black rather than green. But it turns out it wasn't.
Okay.
Although that doesn't really make its way into the show. I mean, I always find like once I finally see the effect done, because you see it for months, and you just kind of like factor it in your head. But when you finally see it with the puppeteers erased, it really is like strikingly different and new and like exciting, because it's like, the composition changes, because like suddenly, you've been watching it for months. And so you just like unconsciously think of the composition being a certain way, but it's not. There's actually all this extra negative space. And now you can perceive the negative space. You can see the beauty of the shot as well as the magic of the shot, which is Chucky alive without the benefit of.
Yeah. And I mean, he always has, but Chucky looks so damn good. I think the show is the best Chucky has ever looked as far as movement.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to Tony. The puppeteers really rock.
I mean, they're so experienced by now after all the films, and like you said, getting back to it sooner after season 1. Yeah.
And I think it really shows in season 2. It's because it's the first time we've ever had that experience to be, we did 8 hours and then a break of just a few months, and then we're back at it.
Although I did see that Tony said they get fewer takes doing TV than with the movies. Is that right? And working with the underage actors, because they kind of have to get wrapped out by a certain time. So
yeah, it's definitely it's more challenging. definitely. You have less time, but it's like, that's, all the more kudos to Tony and his team, because they've really coming through.
I'm very excited, by the way, for this second season to be like a Catholic school setting.
We both grew up Catholic.
Yeah, I forget if we asked you this in our last interview, so if I did, I apologize. But did you grow up Catholic, Don?
I did.
Of course.
I will say it is incredible. I have such a theory. Like every time we interview like horror directors, writers, if I get a chance, I'll ask like, did you grow up Catholic? And it's like 90%. There's something about it that makes us all fucked up in the head.
A lot of my fellow writers, a couple of fellow directors, actors on the show, people behind the scenes, a striking number of people in the same boat, all with their own axes to grind.
Yeah.
Well, there's some dark imagery in Catholicism.
Scary.
So, yeah. You got to do something with that trauma.
Which is why it was like a fun place to plug Chucky into for the first time.
Yeah.
To have Chucky intersect with that world and all of its creepy ritualistic trappings and just unquestioning belief in the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting.
I didn't think about that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I think just the idea that like the church is supposed to be like a safe place, right? Like you're often given the advice, like if you need someone to talk to, you can go to like a religious authority to talk to or something. That's like a safe person. And that's kind of scary in the same way that like a doll is scary. A doll is supposed to be comforting. The therapist gives Carolyn her wedding bell doll, is like, here, maybe she'll help you and she'll be your new friend. And that is why dolls can be really scary, because they're supposed to be nice. And I think of the same way, like clowns are supposed to be fun, but that's also why they're fucking scary,
I love the scene in episode 1 with Allie and Karina, who plays Caroline, when Allie is tying up the bell doll and like saying, repeat after me, all dolls are fucked up.
Yeah. Yep.
That's how serious this is.
Yeah.
Never trust any doll.
Yeah, you're going to say the F word, Caroline.
So is there anything that we should be looking forward to in episode 2 that'll be airing next week by the time people are watching this, without being too spoiler heavy? I'm assuming we're finally going to get our boy Devon Sawa back. We were kind of hoping for a little reveal at the end of episode 1.
We're so excited.
Yes, to see Devon Sawa playing his new character, Father Bryce, is introduced in episode 2. We also pick up the story threads about Tiffany and Nika that we left dangling.
Oh, poor Nika.
Don, what you did to Nika. How could
part of me
you?
will never forgive you. It's so mean.
The horror genre, bad things happen to good people. And that was, again, the acting challenge. I just thought that is what motivated us to go in this direction. In addition to wanting to tell the story, and you see how it plays out the rest of the season, of a disabled character really coming into their own and becoming very, very empowered and taking control of their situation. But that's a spoiler. So, but anyway, so we do start to get into it in episode 2, and we, continue to see what it's like for our kids as they assimilate into this Catholic school where, as Jake says, the Catholics officially are not down with the gays. And so how are they going to negotiate their, tender young relationship in the face of official disapproval, let alone, killer dolls coming for them.
There were 2 moments specifically in episode 1 that really affected me emotionally. And the first was when Jake and Devin couldn't and they had to handshake because his foster parents were that was heartbreaking to see. And I'm so glad we got a cathartic moment after that. But similarly, it was when Caroline was asking Lexi to back her up in the therapist office, and Lexi couldn't because she knew that. And just that having to hide the truth, it can be so heart-wrenching, especially when there's someone who is pleading with you to side with them. I guess it reminds me of Child's Play 3 with like Whitehurst and Andy being like, you saw this, please back me up. And Whitehurst's refusal to do so. And those moments are always just so, they're hard because you put yourself in the position of the person who knows the truth.
And like Catholic school is such a perfect setting for that, is like this kind of compulsion to, you know, go to confession. Like that is an institutionalized thing. Like you're going to sit in this box and tell the truth to someone when there's so many secrets right now on this series.
Yeah. And we, as you can see from the trailer, we do stuff with confession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How could, like, if I, as a, you know, lapsed Catholic, I wouldn't be grinding my axe effectively if I didn't put Chucky in a confessional.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I hope we get some kind of gag with holy water at some point.
Oh, just you wait.
Oh, God. Oh, man. Knowing Chucky, that could be real bad.
Well, let's see where he goes.
Yes.
Hopefully season 3.
Yes, absolutely. And we will continue cheerleading for that and telling people to check it out because we just love the whole franchise and the series. It's just, you know, I feel like I had heard about the TV series as an idea for a while. And it's one of those things where everyone has ideas for sequels and TV series. And at this point, I've learned to say, okay, I'll address it when it finally happens, because so many people have ideas that never come to fruition. It's so cool that it's actually happening, and that's great, and that it got season 2, and that it's so good. Like you deserve this, and Chucky deserves it.
Thank you so much. And we all feel like just grateful because we're all, you know, most of us who are doing it, you know, we're older and we're like, oh my God, we are so lucky. we're aware.
I feel you. Yeah. And that comes across too, which is another reason why I love the franchise and
it's such
and
a
your whole
special
crew.
thing.
Yeah, it's very special. But yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm so glad you're digging it.
Yes. We'll check back in with you, I'm sure, sometime later this season with other episodes, but thanks for joining us for the premiere.
Yeah,
Really
thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
absolutely.
Talk to you guys later.
All right,
Thanks,
see you.
Don. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks again to Don for joining us. I realized about 5 minutes ago I forgot my wedding ring. I'm sorry, hun. As soon as we started talking about the marriage stuff, like...
I wonder how much of our Gilded Age conversation will be left in.
Yeah, because you guys talked about the Gilded Age a lot, and we'll see how much of that makes the final cut.
Maybe next Gilded Age season, me and Don can do an after show.
Huge thanks to Don for joining us, and I'm excited to see who we get next week. We don't even know.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
We haven't even seen that episode yet, but now we can watch it, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next time on the Dead Meat Chucky Season 2 After Show.
Yeah.